So sometimes it's very hard, but we know we can make and draw some conclusions about human beings and their behavior and make sure that the right kind of stuff happens from that point of view. So I want to talk a little bit about what it is that we know that works. And then, of course, really our main theme over these two sessions, one next Wednesday, is really about, yeah, so what is it that you can do? What is it that you can actually do to make sure that your customers have brilliant experiences? And there's that distinction that it's got to be about loyal customers. Okay. And then the second session, we're going to just finish off what we've started today in terms of the how to. I want to get into some specifics. And then we also want to look at how you can use your reputation as a business that gives incredible service to actually generate sales. You all know how important word of mouth is. And of course, in today's world, it is even more powerful than ever before. And we'll talk about that in terms of not only the live face-to-face when people get together, but especially online as well. There are just so many tools available to people. All right. So from that point of view, let's start off with the first question, which is why we are here. What is it that we actually are here for? Well, and even pre-COVID, the world is in absolute turmoil today, and the world of business is in equal amount of turmoil. And what I mean by that is we have so many headaches as businesses in terms of things like how many competitors we have to compete with and what the big guys are doing. And customers are overwhelmed by just too many advertising messages and a whole bunch of things. In fact, I'm going to make a list of those things and go through it very briefly. But it has made running your own business much more difficult than ever before. And I truly believe that businesses themselves, particularly the large businesses, they've actually made their own lives more difficult by complicating it for themselves and for their customers. One of the good examples today is the whole idea of, how can we use big data to get stuff about our customers and infer patterns and draw, conclusions about what they want and what they don't want and so on. It's all very well, but, my bank doesn't even know when my birthday is. So what's the use of having big data if you can't even deal with small data that, in August, Aki has his birthday, let's wish him happy birthday. So they've complicated their lives, spent huge amounts of money. And this is where most of you that are on this webinar this morning have an advantage, because you see, you and I, as small businesses, we don't have the luxury of massive resources, huge computers, tons of staff. All we have is what we know, and we can get directly to the heart of our customers and make sure that we beat the big guys at their game. It's very, very much a David and Goliath situation. And you remember the end of that story, David won. So unfortunately, many of those large businesses, they don't realize that the world has changed dramatically. And it's not just in the last few months, it's in the last few years. But many companies have not, okay? And, forget about innovation, okay? They're not even sure how to keep up, which is why when we do see an innovative company like Apple or Disney or one of those, or a new hotel, we grab onto it and we'll support them no matter what, because they've done something a little bit different. But by far, the majority of large organizations just simply cannot do it. It's the small Davids that are making a difference over there. This is a guy by the name of Richard Tedlow, professor. He's retired now, professor at Harvard Business School. And he spent his whole life looking at why businesses get themselves into trouble. And essentially, he came to the conclusion that businesses going to decline either because their customers leave them or because they leave their customers. Now, I'm going to talk briefly about that. But the point is, there's lots of other reasons, obvious reasons that customers lose their business. They do things like, for example, grow too quickly. They open up too many branches in the wrong areas. They make really poor decisions. They have some crisis where the quality of what they do, causes customers to, in some cases, even die. We've got all of those kinds of things. But essentially, when businesses do make mistakes, if they've got a big group of really thrilled and loyal customers, the customers will forgive them and they'll be able to do something quite spectacular. In other words, the customers will support them and make sure that they survive whatever crisis that is. However, if you've got very few customers and you don't look after them and you have a bad reputation, literally overnight, the business can go out of business. And of course, that's where there are so many examples, and it seems like it's accelerating as time passes. But I'd like to just quickly focus on the two elements of this little definition. First of all, their customers leave them, and what we're talking about there, that is they leave because of quality issues, etc. In fact, the rest of the slide usually talks about, things like being poorly treated, miscommunication, not being able to give customers exactly what they want. A good example of something that happened to me recently, I wanted to pick a certain number of products from an organization, and they said to me essentially, either have them all or you have none. You can't pick and choose, okay? Which is crazy. If you take a look at DSTV, for example, you can choose per channel if you wanted to. The technology exists for you to say, I want this channel, that channel, that channel, but I'm not interested in the others. So can I pay you just for that channel? And of course, it's no surprise that Netflix, amongst others, has just wiped them out, okay? Because it's a much better deal. You can choose what to watch, and you don't have to have adverts interrupting everything. So that's when their customers leave them because they were unhappy with something. On the other hand, some businesses have a vision and they want to go in a particular direction, and they don't check it out with their customers. So they leave their customers and off they go on a particular road, and customers saying, but what were you thinking? That's not where I want to be over there. So they leave their customers, and therefore it leads to a scarcity of customers, falling revenues, and it's on a road to nowhere. In one author's case, they talk about the race to the bottom. And of course, customers are today under an incredible amount of pressure, okay? So what happens is, if we take a look at who the 21st century customers today, again, pre-COVID even, we saw all the changes over there. This story was told to me by somebody from Woolworths, and it's actually something that happened with a retailer in the United States of America called Target. And what they did was they used all of their computer systems very cleverly, it turned out, okay, to identify all sorts of things about their customers. So, for example, they know that one of the best times for a business is when a couple get married and then the wife gets pregnant. Because what happens is the moment that little baby is born, that little boy or that little girl is born, everything changes. And, all their life's priorities change. But we also know that it's a very, very stressful part, especially with the first child, a very stressful part of their lives. So in preparation for the birth of the actual child, you find that there's lots of activities that happen. They tend to buy a lot of products which they may or may not use later on. They buy lots of books. They want to get advice and so on and so on. And then on the date of birth, obviously, they take this precious little child home, and their lives together start. They have now got a complete family. Now, what happens is, if you're a retailer and you can identify that particular date, so we have the before, we have the date of the birth, and then we have the after, then you can do something spectacular. For example, if the parents have now been home for about a week, they suddenly realize that they're absolutely shattered, they're exhausted, because this child needs to be fed every few hours. It wakes up, it cries. They don't know why it's crying. Is it sore? Is it sick? They take the temperature. I remember when my first son was born many years ago, okay, I literally slept on the floor next to his bed because I was worried about this whole sudden infant death syndrome, the baby deaths and the cot deaths. So, it's an exhausting time. And what happens is, when they eventually decide to go shopping to restock the shelves, then they're not going to be picky and choosy. They are too tired to do that. So what they do is they just go into a retailer and hope that whatever they need is there. Adult food, baby food, products, soaps, everything. And they don't even notice what they pay. So Target in the United States, amongst other things, they then drew up all these incredibly clever programs to understand how customers actually buy when they are pregnant, and can we identify that moment? Well, that was fantastic. And what happened is they were able then every week to identify a few customers. And what happens is, the moment they discover that you are actually pregnant, then you get this wonderful little card emailed usually to you saying, oh, what a wonderful thing, and congratulations. Let us know if we can help. But, what a spectacular event in your life. There's only one problem, though, okay? A few months later, a very irate father came through and got through to the call center, and he said, are you people promoting promiscuity? Okay. And they said, no, we're not. Why? What's the problem? He says, because I opened my emails and I got this card over here, okay, which says congratulations on your pregnancy and, and all this and that. And, this is crazy. How can you do that? All right. I don't even know anybody who's pregnant. Okay. And they investigate a little bit further. And it turns out that this dad had a daughter who had just gone to university out of town. So they took their beautiful daughter to university, all of, 18 years old. They set her up there. And what happens is the dad gave her a credit card and said, right, here is your credit card for buying what you need to buy. What will happen, okay, is it'll come through to me, the statement every month, and I will make sure that I pay. So take care of yourself, be careful, etc., etc. And off they went home, a couple of 100 kilometers away. Well, what happens is Target realizes that the girl is pregnant. The only problem is that the communication goes to the dad, and he's all irate. It turns out that the daughter had forgotten to tell her dad. And it wasn't forgotten. She was waiting for the time to be right, okay? She was indeed pregnant. And the problem there was that, she was too scared to tell her dad. So for the rest of his life, he's going to say, Target is the company that actually, betrayed my daughter. And they were the ones who told me and gave me this bad news, okay? And she, for the rest of her life, will say, they're the people who told my dad I wasn't really there. So it turned out to be a very negative event from their point of view, okay? And they realized that maybe this was just too creepy, discovering facts about customers and then responding to them, especially personal things like getting pregnant, is just too creepy. So what happens is that the trust goes, okay? And in today's world, sadly, there's a huge trust deficit. We don't even trust the news anymore. It's all fake news. Not only that, add to the fact that customers are desperately short of money. They are very time poor. Everybody seems to be demanding stuff from them. They are overwhelmed by everything that needs to happen. This is not what my office looks like, but this is what my mind feels like. Absolutely cluttered with too many details. They are bored with the undifferentiated stuff. At the end of the day, everything is the same. All toothpastes are the same. All hotels look the same. You can just replicate. Even shopping malls all look the same. They've got the same brands, probably placed in the same place. And it's just, they are so bored with what they have. And of course, life has become terribly complicated with all the demands that we place on customers, not least of which is, bombarding them with 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 messages for advertising per day. Yesterday, I downloaded my emails. Yesterday was kind of a record day, and I had more than 1,000 emails, most of which are things that I'm not interested in. So it really creates havoc in our lives, okay? And then, of course, all in a world where we are more connected than ever before in human history, okay? And so for a generation of customers, as Chris Anderson from his book Long Tail mentions, for a generation of customers used to doing their buying research by search engine, the company's brand is not what the company says it is, but what Google says it is. The ants have megaphones now. All those little customers like you and me, okay, we can literally talk to millions of people. And the amazing thing for me is that, every once in a while, the social media, for example, just explode. The traditional media pick up on that, and you suddenly have, clicks and a crisis almost overnight. Something happens on Friday, and by Monday morning, okay, they're trashing the stores. And it's sad for me that it comes to that. And we won't go down the whole route of Malema and politics and all that. But the reality is that that's how powerful the social media have become in today's world. And so even if it's not true, what tends to happen is that some terrible things occur over there. And so from that perspective, in terms of just summarizing the why, there's no doubt about the fact that companies that take care of their customers and employees benefit greatly. Okay, and we've all heard the stats. The companies that do well, for example, grow 7 times faster than their rivals that don't take care of customers. They're 60% more profitable. They know it's more than 5 times more expensive to acquire one new customer. So there's a lot of good stuff happening over there relating to, the statistics. And in fact, if you'd like details, I've got a huge white paper. I think it's 43 pages long, which cites all of the evidence, the research-based evidence about how you succeed when you take care of customers and how you will definitely fail if you don't take care of your customers. And we have a situation, again, where I'm just sampling a handful of things, but if you think how people have changed, because customers are savvier than ever before in human history, we know, for example, that it takes 12 positive experiences just to make up for one negative. And because customers are now fussier than ever before, they look out for things that in the past they might not have even noticed, okay? 86% of buyers will pay more for a better experience. You know what it's like. You probably shop at Woolworths. You probably buy fast food at Nando's. You probably spend much more than you should at the various companies that you love, okay? And it could well be that the taste of Nando's is just brilliant, okay? And I love it. And I must have had Nando's 1,000 times and more in my life, but I still love the taste of it. But it's not enough, okay, if you only have good tasting chicken. It's also about the way customers are treated. And we'll talk more about that as we go along, all right? And of course, customer service agents, unfortunately, fail to answer customer questions 50% of the time. For those of you who work in any sort of telephonic kind of environment, that's scary. That means half the time they don't get answers. 51% of customers will never do business again after just one negative experience. Now, of course, that changes depending on the industry that you're with. Okay, it's much harder to cancel your bank accounts and go to a new bank, okay? But the reality is that customers are not as loyal as they used to be. And of course, that word of mouth is so important. Mark Zuckerberg, yes, he has got a vested interest because Facebook is about sharing with your friends. But he made this point that nothing influences people more than a recommendation from a trusted friend. Okay, when I talk to financial directors, and I'm not going to go into too much detail over here, you've got the actual details in your notes, okay, but what we have is a situation where if I'm talking about just the money, remember that in year one, as year zero, as you acquire that customer, so in the bottom left-hand corner, okay, we have the acquisition cost of the customer. So on the left-hand scale, we talk about the profit that customers get. In fact, let me just quickly get this highlighter going so you can see it better. Okay, I'm going to put a laser pointer in here. So this is where we measure the profitability per customer, okay? We start off in debt. We actually start off in debt because there are certain customer acquisition costs, and it might be a little bit different in your business, but there's research and development, market research. Is this going to work? And then you've got to develop your product or your service and launch it. And launching it can be quite expensive. And then you've got to do advertising and promotion so that people understand that you're there and you're available, whether it's banners outside your business, whether it's sending out emails, whether it's having a Facebook page or a own website, but it can be expensive. And then, of course, in many businesses, getting new customers on board, onboarding them, doing credit checks and entering their details on a computer and all of those things contribute to the acquisition cost. Now, in year one, and this along the bottom scale, we measure year one, year two, year three, year four, over a period of time, you may be able to charge a little bit of a profit, okay? Sort of a 5% before tax, okay? So you do a little base profit that helps you to recover some of that money. But at the end of the day, in so many competitive industries, there's really not much to work with over there. But what happens, okay, you also get benefits that accrue from other things. So over a period of time, okay, if you have a good reputation, for example, you can charge a price premium. You obviously get the power of referrals and recommendations. You get increased sales through cross sales, through up sales, through down sales, and where you are able to service and to give your customers more of what they actually want. They also tend to come back more often, and they tend to be, by the way, also less price sensitive, okay? The cost to serve reduces. Why? Because we get to know them, they get to know us, they don't have silly little queries that they keep us busy with. They know exactly how it works, and we know how they work, so we can do something about it, okay? And of course, because our customers are out there building our reputation, our marketing costs drop right down. Now, what tends to happen then is over a period of time in year one and year two and year three, those things are quite small. But as time passes, in fact, those other things, not the base profit, that remains the same, but the other things are what make it so worthwhile. And in fact, if you're making so much money from the top part, you can even play around with the profit, okay? And you can even cheapen your prices if you so choose. I don't like that as a strategy, but you can do that, all right? So from that perspective, folks, this is what financial directors, when they see this, they start to understand that this is possible. And I have a little Excel spreadsheet where they can start plugging in some estimates. And then suddenly they realize that, hang on, there's some money to be made over here. All right, some of them, are not interested, but the majority suddenly realize it's not just about people liking us. It's about something much deeper than that. For example, what does it cost to have one customer complaint? It can be expensive when you take people's time into consideration, and then, we have to give them refunds and then investigate and all of those kinds of things. All right. So why should you care? There's a little summary. You're going to get this: the lifetime value of loyalty, the profitability of the business, customers, the way they respond and react to us, building our reputation or destroying it, our marketing communication costs, word of mouth. They tend to be very tolerant and forgiving when things go wrong, when they are loyal, okay? And the effect on competitors, well, competitors, they will, find ways of attacking you and trying to take your customers away or to try and regain those customers. But what they tend to do, okay, is they tend to do it by lowering their prices. And that's fine for me. If my competitors are lowering their prices to secure the business, I know it's not sustainable. Some of you may have a team of people working for you. And the question then is, okay, but what about me? It's all very well. You'll be happy as the owner of the business. You're more profitable. But what about me? I just work here. Well, company security leads to job stability, obviously. There's financial reward and other recognition. Companies that are doing well tend to be more generous towards employees with increases and bonuses, okay? There's a pleasant work environment, better morale, better work relationships, no finger pointing, crisis management, firefighting, growth opportunities and career advancement. I remember when Tracy and I first met, and I'm not going to tell you how many decades ago it was, but what happened, okay, is Nando's, when I first got involved with them, had a total of 16 stores. 16. I think there were 2 in Cape Town and about 1 in Durban, and the rest were in Johannesburg. Today, Nando's is sitting with more than 2,500 stores all over the world, okay? Who are the people running the various countries? Who are the people running the various stores? It's people who were at Nando's at the beginning, okay? They may have started off as a griller or even as a dishwasher. And we have stories like that, but now they are managing their own store, or in some cases managing a region or managing a whole country, okay? And of course, maybe the only one that is guaranteed is that by reaching out and helping other people, we sleep better at night. Okay, so folks, that's the why part. And I can get into a ton of detail to persuade you, but I have a feeling that you probably already persuaded, otherwise you wouldn't be here this morning. The question then is there any hope for your business? And of course, as far as I'm concerned, of course, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. We know that the world is in a horrible state at the moment. So citizens all over the world and customers are absolutely miserable. You turn on your TV tonight and you will see riots everywhere. Every continent seems to have problems, okay? And customers have become very militant as well. Fierce competition and an inability to differentiate our offers, particularly products and services, okay? It's only about the loyalty of our customers, which we'll talk about, okay? But if you take care of them, okay, this is the title of a book, which I wish I'd thought of, okay? It's a lady, an American lady by the name of Jean Bliss. She says, I love you more than I love my dog. And for me, that's what it's all about. Do they love your business more than they love their dog? Do they, when they talk about you, do they say, unbelievable, I can't believe what actually happened over there? And what happens, okay, the question then is for really the rest of our 2 sessions together, how do you make your brand impossible to resist? How do you make your business impossible to resist? And of course, nobody's indispensable, but that doesn't mean we don't ask the question. So let's talk a little bit about customer loyalty. Here's a lovely picture of, some of you will love broccoli, some of you will hate it, okay? We know that when it comes to kids, most kids hate cauliflower and broccoli, okay? And what tends to happen is that we as parents, and I'm sure most of you are parents out there, we bribe our children, okay? Whether it's with kids or adults or employees or whoever it is, okay? Because broccoli is not as nice as, for example, ice cream or pudding, okay? We need to give them a reward for us to persuade them to eat those things, all right? But you see, we don't think those things through properly, okay? Because when the parents stop rewarding the kids for broccoli, okay, by giving them ice cream, okay, then the kids stop eating the broccoli. I know it happened to me at my house when I was a kid. My parents, we used to have Coca-Cola only on celebrations, okay? And of course, I was desperate for this Coca-Cola. And what happened is, the moment I got to the age of 18 and I was teaching a little bit and doing some stuff and earning a little bit of salary, I would get to the point where I was drinking 2 liters of Coca-Cola per day, because it was something missing in my youth. And we have to be very careful, because there's unintended consequences. So whether it's with kids, with adults, employees, customers, we tend to default to the carrot and stick, the rewards and punishments, okay? And we do it with employees, employee of the month card, bonuses, all sorts of things. And we do it with customers. That's why when I hear people talking about customer loyalty, and they talk about loyalty and reward programs, okay, and they're saying that customer loyalty is about points, then I start getting very agitated and very worried. Because you see, there are consequences over there, and these are very powerful in the short term. Please don't get me wrong. I know that these things work. When you go and get a discount, or when you get points and you can redeem them, when you get a freebie, those things work, okay? And not only, you know, my wife and family, we go and shop at places that give us something, but I do it, and I know how this works. But they often tend to undermine what they set out to achieve. True loyalty is about, I love you more than I love my dog. It's not because you gave me a little reward. It's about something much deeper than that. Tell me if this sounds like a familiar conversation, okay? So the little kid goes to his mom. Ma, can I have a biscuit, please? No, it's just before supper. You can have an apple. But Ma, I really, really want a biscuit. No, what you really, really want is an apple. But Ma, I need a biscuit. No, my boy, what you really need is an apple. Okay? And of course, the kid walks away, cross with his mom, and next day goes to visit Granny. Goes to Granny. Bubba, can I have a biscuit, please? Yeah, sure, my boy, have two. Can you see the difference? Okay? Somebody said to me the other day that grandchildren is the reward that you get when you've survived your own children. Okay, that's the reward that you get. Grandparents have got a chance to do something different and to spoil children. And you need to be more like the grandparent and less like the mom. It's hard, okay? But our customers are looking for somebody to, you know, sort of hug them and to, you know, drag them into their bosom and just, you know, as a source of warmth. I love watching a lot of these programs on television, these cooking programs. And what happens is when you talk about, you know, so who inspired you as a chef? Who was the one who, and so many people say my grandmother. They don't say my mom, they say my grandmother. Okay. So from that perspective, let me just make it a business story. And I know a few of you have heard me saying this, so please forgive the repeat. This is Prof. Earl Sasser from Harvard Business School. He wrote one of the first books on linking service to profit. And for his whole life, he was a very loyal BMW driver. Loved the brand, loved the car, loved the way it made him feel, loved the performance. And what happens, okay, is that one day, and he kept replacing them every few years. He would replace for another BMW. So he's now, by the time he gets to you know, the retirement age, he's probably had 10, 12, maybe 15 BMWs, one after the other. One day, a couple of years ago, he takes his BMW for a service, gets home that evening and realizes that the cigarette lighter is missing. So, of course, just like you and I, he starts panicking. Oh, man, how hard can it be? Now I know when I went in there this morning, my light was there, and now it's disappeared, and they're going to blame me, and I wonder how much this thing costs, and I'll probably have to visit a lawyer. He immediately phones them, but they've closed. You know, there's a security guard, and they say, sorry, you know, tomorrow morning. So he doesn't sleep the whole night. He's worried about, you know, how is this going to actually happen? What am I going to do? Next morning, he's on that phone, very aggressive, and he says to the service manager, when I bought my car in yesterday morning, the cigarette lighter was there. What have you done? You guys have lost it. And the service manager says to him, sir, I'm sorry, it's 7:30. We're very busy, but I promise you I'm going to phone you back within the next 90 minutes or so. Just give me a chance to just find out what happened, okay? And true to his word, the service manager from BMW phones back, and he says, sir, we found it. Don't know how this happened, but I've put it into a little envelope, and I'm going to leave it at the reception area. Next time you're in the area, just pop in and pick it up. Whew. Okay. The sense of relief was great. Now he doesn't have to visit lawyers. He doesn't have to buy a new one. You know, the value of his car hasn't gone down. All of those nightmares from the night before just disappear. But now what happens is all of his students and all of his friends are saying, but you know what? BMW, that's a nice car, but really, if you want to know who are the best brand in the world, the people who take care of their customers, it's got to be Lexus. Lexus has got these legendary stories, and I've got a few that I could tell you. If you want, you just write to me, okay? So he thinks to himself, I wonder what Lexus would do. So he phones them. That's his job. He's to find out and do research. So he phones the Lexus service manager and he says, look, I'm not one of your customers, but I'd like to find out from you. What would happen is if I brought my car in for a service and then I got home and the cigarette lighter was missing, what would you do? And the service manager, without hesitation, says, sir, that wouldn't happen here. He says, oh, come on, man. Of course, we all make mistakes sometimes. How can you say that it wouldn't happen at Lexus? So the service manager from Lexus says, no, so I'll tell you why, because at the end of the day, before we hand the car over back to the customer, we've got two of our most senior technicians doing a check. They work with a checklist and they check every little thing. Did we change the radio station? Is the money in the cubby hole and so on? And is the cigarette lighter in place? It just wouldn't happen, okay? So he says, oh, that's quite impressive. So you're doing some prevention up front. Yeah, absolutely. And then he says, but let's just assume something did go wrong. Just humor me, okay? So let's assume something does go wrong, and what happens is that it gets lost in the process. And I phoned you and said, what would happen? What would you actually do? So he said, well, sir, what I would probably do as soon as I heard about it, I'd go to the parts department, I'd go and pick the cigarette lighter for your model, and I'd probably bring it to your office or to your home, whatever you choose. Oh, okay, so you'd bring it to me. Not, it's just waiting at reception in a little envelope. You'd bring it to me. Yes, sir, that's the least that we could do. Wow, he was impressed by that. But that's not the end of the story. Because you see, what actually happened, okay, is that a couple of days later, he gets a phone call from that same Lexus service manager. And the service manager from Lexus says to him, sir, I've been thinking about what you told me over there. And by the way, I'm going to be in your area. Would you like me to go to BMW and pick up your lighter? How do you beat that? You can only be the first one. If BMW now says, oh, okay, well, we'll do the same, okay? It's too late, okay? What happens is that the right kind of stuff has happened over there. Right, folks, I'm going to just pause here for a second because I see there's quite a few comments. Now, I've just lost them. There we go. Let me just get this up over here. Have you seen anything, Laurie or Tracy, in terms of questions and comments?
So Andrew has made some comments, and his one thing that was pertinent to me was the fact that your staff are actually your best customers, and he put something down about a discussion that he had with his employers, that your staff are really your brand ambassadors.
Absolutely.
As well.
Yeah.
And we're just having a bit of a side chat here about Nando's. But Andrew, is there anything that you would like to ask Aki to address?
Aki, the only thing sorry, my video on.
Yes.
Aki, I think one of the things that people need to understand, I think that we need to look at is also whether we should be looking for tenders and stuff like that. It's a way of marketing yourself. I don't think that every customer, every business is the same. I mean, I'm a lawyer, and I get a lot of people who ask me, do you want to tender to become the attorney for this person or this person or this company? And because of my makeup, I don't really go for it. Is that am I letting myself down, or should I be going for tenders? Do you think tenders are a good thing? Especially for the government and stuff like that, or for doing. Yes. Should you be willing to sell yourself short? In other words, let's say you're selling hamburgers, and instead of selling them at 10 Rand, let's sell them at 8 Rand, and let's get a tender.
Yes, you know what, you've got a soulmate over there, because I could not agree with you more that tendering is probably the worst way of chasing business. I understand why a big civil engineering company will have to do it, otherwise they don't get any business. I understand why certain organizations would do that, but if you take a look at what you sell, you're selling your wisdom, your expertise, your experience, and of course the experience of the customer. For example, you're reassuring them about a time in their lives that they are actually worried about something. Are we breaking the law? Are we going to lose money over here, and so on? And I think it's a horrid way of doing business. I can't remember if it was in the Apollo space program, but they said that one of the astronauts half jokingly said, we actually, we do tend to worry a little bit because we are sitting on top of this exploding bomb, okay, which has been given, the business has been given to the person with the cheapest price, okay. And from my point of view, it cheapens the whole brand and so on. It smacks in terms of legal terms of the ambulance chasing. Let's secure the business at any cost. You see, this is where a large legal firm probably needs to do it in order to secure business. But when you are a smaller business, I think you have the luxury of being able to charge higher prices and your reputation precedes you, okay? And of course, speciality. If you specialize in private schools, of course, you can do all sorts of things. There's also a lovely story that came to my mind from Richard Branson. He was interviewed on Radio 702 in South Africa. And I remember this so clearly. This goes back 10, maybe 15 years ago. But they said to him, what's your philosophy? And he said, well, I'll tell you in a nutshell. He said, in the old days, we used to put the shareholders first, and then the customers were second, and our employees were last, okay? He said, I think we've got that all wrong. He says, if you take care of your employees, they will in turn take care of the customers, and the customers will look after the shareholders. And I just remember it struck me in my head, like a whack on the side of the head, because I think it's so important. When your employees are delighted, they pass it on. But when they're unhappy, they sabotage, they don't cooperate. I was in an organization a little while ago, and I'm definitely not going to mention them, but it's an organization that all of you know. You maybe haven't dealt with them, but all of you know. And the one kid on my course actually said, when in a call center, he said, when our customers call in, I'm busy watching Netflix videos on my phone while I'm dealing with the customer. While I'm talking to the customer, I'm watching Netflix. And I just thought, wow, there's something seriously wrong over there. So it's not about forcing employees. It's about actually getting that same willingness. In the same way we want to, get our customers to, get excited about our business. I love you more than I love my dog. We don't want our employees dragging their legs in on a Monday morning as if they're wearing lead boots and saying, oh, no, not another week of this place. And in spite of what we think, there are organizations like that. One of my favorites is Hollard, for example, where you see the spring in their step, and the boss serves ice cream on Fridays in warm weather, and there's a whole bunch of things. But it's not about little things like ice cream. It's about the respect that they have for their employees, where they trust their judgment, and where there's some sense of, you're another human being, we're in this together. I could talk about it forever. In fact, my next book is called Turning Ducks into Eagles. It's really about bringing that up. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Andrew. Tracy, anybody else over there? Any other comments?
I'll ask another thing, Aki. Sorry. I know I've got quite a few questions to ask, but
no,
that's I think you got the answers, which I think is amazing. I don't think I think as a small business, you need to look after your employees because they're the ones running the business when you're not there. I think that the other thing I need to ask about is that do you think it's worthwhile to spend a lot of money on advertising through Facebook, do you think that it's and even to spend money on your past clients? Because I mean, sometimes only if you got a client that could, like I'm a lawyer, I don't think that clients really come back to me because when they got a problem, they come to me. But generally, look, I mean, I'd love to have more repeat customers, but there aren't many repeat customers because I'm only providing labor law. How many times do you get dismissed?
Yes.
So, I mean, if I'm only providing that, I don't really have to look after that client that much, except to do his case, finish his case, I always do an exit letter, which I think is very important.
Absolutely.
I don't know what you think about that.
Andrew, absolutely. I think, again, you've hit the nail on the head. And paying for advertising promotions and so on, as I mentioned to you, the messages tend to get lost, so it becomes a lot more expensive. It may well be that you're looking for a specific target audience, and that's where Facebook and Google are very good. And in fact, if you look at the recordings from Orchard, there have been a couple of people who've done some fantastic, very spectacular presentations relating to Google and Facebook. So something like Google My Business, that's a no-brainer over there. You have to be careful about, obviously, how far you want to go and how much you're prepared to pay. However, I mentioned to you is that the word of mouth, it may well be that I'm only going to get dismissed once in my lifetime, okay? In fact, I've been fired from 2 jobs, so I know what it's like, okay? But most people won't even get fired once. But the point is, okay, that I know a lot of people that have been fired or dismissed, constructively dismissed, and so on. And the point that I'm making over here is that typically when this happens, I would say to that person, listen, do yourself a favor. Don't go anywhere else. Speak to my friend, over here. Speak to Andrew. He really not only fought for me, he was like a bulldog in my corner, but I actually got a great payout and whatever. So it's where that word of mouth happens. Your exit letter, I think, is fantastic. I'm going to, in next week's session, share with you a little strategy with only 4 little steps, which has worked very, very powerfully in my business, because I also sell a promise. I don't sell a product. I mean, I give people a handout, but I'm selling a promise to our clients, okay? And it has kept me busy for the better part of 30 years, okay? It's something which helps me to avoid cold calling and advertising, and which helps me to actually keep in touch with my customers. So I'm going to be sharing that little model next week. It's a little 4-step model, but it's incredibly powerful. Keep in touch. In fact, if you give Tracy your details, you don't even have to wait to next week. I will send it through to you. It's literally just a 1.5-page little article, and you'll find that you're probably doing most of that stuff already anyway. Okay, fantastic, fantastic. Okay, excellent. Right, so I'm going to cover this next one just very briefly, just to make a particular point. Along the left-hand scale, let me just get the highlighter back on again. Along the left-hand scale, we're measuring customer loyalty. Are they actually loyal, from very low levels of loyalty at the bottom to incredibly high levels of loyalty, where they actually do very desirable things, like tell their friends and treat our staff with respect and pay their accounts on time and so on. And then what we measure along the bottom is their perceptions, how they feel about us. How satisfied are they? Whether on the left-hand side, they're extremely unhappy, or whether they're absolutely delighted. Now, we make the assumption, of course, that delighted customers are going to be loyal customers. And in reality, what we have is a situation, I call them angels, you can call them whatever you want, but these are the customers that not only when you ask them, they say, oh, brilliant business, I love these guys, best things since sliced bread, but they want to show how loyal they are to you through the repeat business, through all those other things, those very desirable behaviors that we seek from our customers, okay? Now, unfortunately, for most businesses, 2, 3, maybe 4, with a bit of luck, 5% of customers are angels. Some businesses have got many more, okay? But on average, it's a very low number. We then assume, they're saying, okay, well, then obviously if they're unhappy in the bottom left-hand corner, then they will do damage to our business. Now, before we look at that, I'd like to just go to the top left-hand corner. There are many customers, think, for example, banks and banking, okay, where the customer appears to be loyal. They appear to be loyal because, I mean, after month after month, they keep coming back, okay? It could be with a particular shopping mall where it's up the road from where you live, or a petrol station that just happens to be 400 meters from your home. You're not going to go further to go and fill up your car with petrol because it's a commodity, okay? But we have to be very careful because those customers start feeling like hostages, and it doesn't take long before those hostages start acting like terrorists. Now, I don't like the word terrorists, but it makes a particular point over here. The terrorists are those customers who are unhappy and they do damage. They badmouth us, they get on the social media, they abuse the staff, they damage our property, they steal the salt and pepper, they do whatever they can to actually do damage to our business. And I call them terrorists because, like in terrorism, they have a very small investment that gives them a huge return. And I always use the same example, and forgive me if you've heard it before, but if you take a look at how the world changed on 9/11, 2001, okay, the whole world was changed by essentially about 40 people. Out of 7 billion people in the world, 40 people changed the world, okay? That's how powerful these terrorists are, okay? But that's still not the danger zone. Can I tell you where I think the danger zone is, okay? It's here. These are the customers that when we ask them, they will say they might even say that they're delighted, but certainly they are not unhappy. But the problem is that they're not necessarily loyal. And I call them the mercenaries because mercenaries don't care whether they fight for side A or side B. It makes no difference. Who's going to give me the best deal? And this kind of speaks a little bit to Andrew's question as well, because you see, the mercenaries are going to just say, well, we're going to put this out to tender and whoever gives us the best price. I mean, how hard can it be? And the reality is, okay, that yes, Andrew is absolutely right. That in some organizations, particularly if you're looking for a monthly retainer, okay, it may well be a good thing to actually go for a tendering type process. But in reality, okay, our reputation goes ahead of us. People saying, no, 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 look, as they say in Afrikaans, goedkoop is duurkoop, penny wise and pound foolish. Let's spend a little bit more, but let's make sure that we get the right stuff. We don't want mercenaries. And sadly, in today's world, there are just millions and millions of mercenary customers. It may be that 95% of your customer base are mercenaries. You see it on every night. You turn on your TV and every single insurance company of the top 10 is advertising OutSurance and Dial Direct and all the rest of them, okay? Because customers are saying, well, who's going to give me the lowest premium? And what are they advertising themselves on? Low premium. On the other hand, when I do have an accident, do I want to go with the cheapest company? Do I want them to say to me, oh, your one tire is slightly smooth, we're going to repudiate your claim? Can you see what I'm talking about here, folks? We have to be very careful how we come across. And it won't surprise you to hear that the biggest insurance company in South Africa is Santam, with approximately 25% market share. And while they do occasionally have some adverts on, and I think I saw one last night, the reality is that they're the biggest, they're the most profitable, and they don't need to advertise, okay, because their reputation precedes them. All right. So, folks, I think you get the point. Now, the question then is, how do we deal with all this? And I'm going to just introduce this, and then next week we'll obviously finish it off. But we have a situation where if this barrel represents your business, obviously at the beginning of the business, we have to do what I like to call offensive marketing. It's not offensive to customers. That's not what I've called it. But we're fighting a battle. The battle is for customers, okay? And sadly, it's like chasing chickens. If you want to have a good chicken dinner tonight and you live on a farm, the reality is that the first thing we have to do is chase and corner that darn chicken and catch it. But A, the chicken does not want to be caught. And B, okay, we've got all our competitors chasing that same chicken. And essentially, this is where advertising and promotion and discounts. I mean, there's a new Builders Warehouse, not Builders Warehouse, Builders Express that opened up around the corner from where I live. And on opening day, they gave 500 Rand in cash to the first 10 customers. There were people that slept outside on the night before opening, okay? There's a new spa that's opened in Edenvale, Bedford View area today. Once again, the freebies are there, and that's good. It creates hype, and it makes people aware of it, and you can get the radio station to broadcast from there and so on. I have no problem with that. But we can't keep doing that, because tomorrow morning, if we want to again eat, we have to get up and chase those chickens again, okay? And it's exhausting and expensive. On the other hand, if you nurture those chickens and take care of them and plump them up, you can have omelets every day for life. So once we've got them in there, and it's expensive as it is, okay, first of all, is your corporate barrel full? I've never, ever encountered one business who said to me, oh, actually, no, we've got enough customers. We're quite happy with the number of customers. It's all right. They can go to our competition. On the contrary, most organizations say, please help us get some more, okay? And what do they do for us? When they're there together, what are they saying about us? Why do they talk? Do they come back as often as they want to? Do they always come back to us, or don't they? And then, of course, when they leave, why do they leave? And there's lots of reasons why customers leave. I'm going to very briefly go through them. But essentially, 1% die, 3% move away, about 5%, they have a new connection somewhere. Maybe my brother-in-law opens up a new Italian restaurant or something. 9% leave for so-called competitive reasons, convenience, price, etc. 14% of customers in retail leave because they were unhappy, unforgivable. But 2/3 of customers don't know why they left. Now, these are retail statistics, and it'll differ depending on your business. But the point is, when you say to customers, remember you used to go there quite often. I noticed you haven't been. Why? I don't know. But well, did something go wrong? Were you unhappy? No, it was always fine. But was it too expensive? Was it? No, not at all. But did you move on? No. But what you hear them saying when you probe deeper is, I just got a bit bored. We just got a bit sick and tired of the place. They play the same old tape all the time. I've been going there for 17 years. They don't even say, nice to see you again. And this is where it becomes so dangerous. Customers feel that they were taken for granted. Nobody actually went out of their way. And so from that perspective, somehow we need to get them to fall in love with us over a long period of time. Okay, once we've got them inside, we need to defend. The key question is, why should they stay? And they'll stay because of the good deals and the rewards and the points, but they also stay for other reasons. So if you cannot be distinct, you're not going to become extinct. Okay, reality is be interesting or be invisible. That's really what it's all about. So let's just quickly make a start on what customer loyalty is and how you get it, and then we'll get into some detail next week before we look at how this impacts on your sales. So to achieve sustainable levels of customer loyalty, in other words, now you can see why I'm saying, it's not about reward points and giveaways and discounts. They do work, but sustainably, how do you do it? I was talking to a very large bank recently, which you all know, and they spent to get their program going something like 450 million rand to buy software and hardware and train up their staff and so on. And that's before they even gave away 1 point. Okay. And then they've got to go and find partners out there. And the partners then have to sell those same points. It's an absolute nightmare. So it cost them almost 500 million rand just to get a reward process in place. But Aki, it's good because our customers come back and they fill up their cars with petrol and they do lots of transactions. And then I said to the person I was dealing with, so as far as you're concerned, if you withdrew this program immediately, if you stopped doing it, would your customers still come back again? Deathly silence. Absolute silence. Because he knows that the customers are only there for the points. They don't care about coming back to support that bank. It's just, there's something wrong there, okay? So we need to create high barriers to switching. And unfortunately, you can't stop your competitors from opening up down the road from you, okay? However, this is where we get into the details of it. And there are four broad areas, and we're going to look at these very briefly now, and then I'll go into the details later on, okay? First of all, I don't need to tell you, you've got to get the basics incredibly right. We've got to stop doing dumb things that upset our customers, and that's a good start. My alarm just went off to tell me I'm 5 minutes away from there. But getting the basics right is about just keeping your promises, whether they're expressly stated or implicitly understood. Focus on little details, okay, like phoning them on their birthday, for example, and listen, because customers give us clues about what they like and don't like about doing business. Once you've got the basics right, you can see that this is the foundation. There's also a second part to the foundation, and that is we also, and it's a special case of the first one, make it easy and effortless to do business with our business. We can't, making their lives difficult. Now, some of you don't have the luxury of that. You have to do Fika and Rika and all those other things, and it's an absolute nightmare. But the point is, we need to identify what are the things that are at a physical level, okay, where, for example, I'm at that age now where arthritis is setting in and I simply cannot open some packaging. I can't reach up and get the top thing on the top shelf. When I walked through the airport, I've done 2 kilometers by the time I get to my destination. I've had my exercise for the day. It's physically hard, okay? And then intellectually, they don't understand things, okay? It's just complicated. And then emotionally, where they feel powerless, they feel like you've got the power, and I feel, helpless over here, and that leads to hopelessness. And then how much time did they have to expend? How long do we keep them waiting? Those two, if they are weak, everything else crumbles. It doesn't matter how fancy you get, how well you're dressed, how many freebies you give to them. It's the equivalent of putting lipstick on a pig. The problem is it's still a pig. It makes the pig more attractive, but it's still a pig. We have to get those basics right, and we have to make it as easy as possible. Now, I'm going to share with you some examples in next week's session, but this is really where most of your effort will lie immediately. Does that mean we don't focus on the others? Of course not. You can immediately start building relationships, putting relationships first. Give me evidence, okay, that you truly care, not just platitudes, okay? Touch my heart. Do I love you more than I love my dog, okay? Because you made me laugh, because you reassured me, because you gave me a hug, maybe even, okay? But you were like the granny. Sure, my boy, have two, rather than like the mommy. You will have no biscuits before dinner, okay? Even though mom is right. Okay? And then there's a whole bunch of other ways of adding value, okay? And they relate to the non-people things. So it's, for example, sharing information with them, showing them the shortcuts, constantly and innovatively finding creative ways to give unbelievable, personal, memorable experiences. Disney's very good at this. Apple is very good at this. you know, there's lots and lots of people who add value by doing all sorts of things. We had a family wedding recently, and the photographer said, you know, print the photographs and this and that and the other. And at the end of it all, the photographer said, and by the way, I'm immigrating and I'm going to give you the master of all the things. You can print them anywhere you want for as much as you want to. Okay. So he charged them for the wedding. He charged them for the prints, but he gave them the originals. Okay. And that was just so meaningful. Because he could have just said, sorry, I own the negatives or the equivalent thereof, but he didn't. Those things then take you to the so-called blue ocean, which is that territory where nobody else is. Blue ocean is unexplored, uncharted territory, okay? The red ocean is full of the blood of competition, of, you know, shark fighting shark. But blue oceans is a place where your customers have never been taken before, okay? We've always had chicken available as a fast food or you know, as a possibility for eating dinner. But Nando's changed it by making us laugh with the adverts, but also with, you know, incredibly tasty chicken, but also the way they treated us when we were there. For example, I remember that one of the things at Nando's was that they turned on the geyser so you could wash your hands with warm water. The others said, no, we're only going to give them cold water because it's expensive to run the geyser. I mean, it's so pathetic, okay? But Nando's said, no, we're going, because people eat chicken with their fingers and there's fat on their fingers, we're going to turn on the warm water. Okay, and it helps to clean up nicely. It's little things like that that make a big difference. Okay, folks, so I want to just get into some questions again, and I know there's quite a few of them. I've run out of time, so what we're going to do next week is we're going to spend half an hour just, you know, making this a little bit more real for you with sharing some examples and so on. But this particular slide is everything you need to delight your customers and to create loyalty. So, Tracy, can I just ask you if there's any questions that need to be answered? And I'm going to leave the time guidance in your hands. My time is available, but I'm going to let you decide when you want to terminate it. And then I'll continue.
Nothing has come through in the chat box. Okay. But if there is anything that anyone would like to ask, can we ask you please to unmute yourselves? And Aki will be taking questions. In the interim, while you're thinking about your questions, I'm going to ask Laurie, please, to put up our poll, which is a 2-question survey, just to answer on your behalf how you found our webinar this morning. And that will be followed by a donation poll.
I apologize, sorry, Trace, but someone is logged onto the account, so I can't launch it.
Okay, not a problem.
I completely forgot to check that. So, but if anyone would like to make a donation to Orchet, I will put a link in the chat box. Thank you.